Hey guys, it's Jacolia of Jacolia Gems. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. You could do me a favor, pause the video, like, comment, share this on your social media platforms, as well as subscribe if you have not already done so. So on today, I want to delve into a topic that's very important to me as a Black woman, as a daughter of a Black man, as a mother of a Black boy, as a best friend to a Black male, so on and so forth. I want to tackle the topic of suicide in Black males in general, boys and men. I want to start off by reading this scripture. I'm going to read a couple of scriptures so that you guys can know that men have dealt with emotional plights since the beginning of time. And this is not anything new, but it's something that has been overlooked at a disproportionate rate. So this is Psalms 42. As the deer pants for streams of water, so my soul pants for you. My God, my soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When can I go and meet with God? My tears have been food day and night, while people say to me all the day long, where is your God? These things I remember as I pour out my soul, how it used to go to the house of God and the protection of the Mighty One, with shouts of joy and praise among the festive throng. Why, my soul, are you downcast? Why so disturbed with me? Put your God, put your hope in God, for I will yet praise him, my Savior and my God. My soul is downcast within me. Therefore, I will remember you from the land of the Jordan, the heights of Hermon, from Mount Mizraim. Deep calls to deep, in the roar of your waterfalls, all the waves of breakers have swept over me. By day, the Lord directs his love, and by night, his song is with me, a prayer of the God of my life. I say to God, my rock, why have you forgotten me? Why must I go about mourning, oppressed by the enemy? My bones suffer mortal agony as my foes taunt me, saying to me all day long, where is your God? Why, my soul, are you downcast? Why so disturbed within me? Put your hope in God, for I will yet praise him, my Savior, my God. The last scripture that I'm going to read is actually one that has gotten me through a lot, and that is Psalms, the 6th chapter. And in Psalms, the 6th chapter, we're going to see that this is painted out in a reality. This scripture is one that's very in depth and very visual when it comes to the type of depression that we can go through as a people. O Lord, rebuke me not in thine anger, neither chasten me in thy hot displeasure. Have mercy upon me, O Lord, for I am weak. O Lord, heal me, for my bones are vexed. My soul is also sore vexed. But thou, O Lord, how long? Return, O Lord. Deliver my soul. O save me for thy mercy's sake. For in death there is no remembrance of thee. In the grave, who shall give thee thanks? I am weary with my groaning. All the night make I my bed to swim. I water my couch with my tears. My eye is consumed because of grief. It waxeth old because of my enemies. Depart from me, all ye workers of iniquity. For the Lord hath heard the voice of my weeping. The Lord hath heard my supplication. The Lord will receive my prayer. Let all my enemies be ashamed and sore vexed. Let them return and be ashamed suddenly. So, unfortunately, growing up in the Black community, because that's the only thing that I can speak about, because clearly I'm a Black woman, a lot of times Black boys are told they cannot cry for anything at all. If they're bleeding, you better get up, put some dirt on it. If their feelings are hurt, they can't express it. We do a lot of robbing of our Black boys of their voices at a very, very young age. And I'm going to say this for Black women. Black women have a major role in robbing Black boys and Black men of their voice, of their narrative, of their feelings, of their boundaries, of their rights, of who they are supposed to be as boys and as men. We do a lot of damaging through our words. There are times that I'm the type of parent that if I verbally feel like I've taken things too far, or if I've caused an offense, or I've said something that can damage my children, I go back and I talk to them immediately. I self correct. I know what words and actions can do to the mental and emotional, physical, and spiritual development as a child. I'm especially careful with both of my children. With my son, there are certain ways that I parent him that I can't parent my daughter because she's 7 years older than him and she's a female, he's a male. But also due to the fact that he has an absentee father who is nowhere in his life. And he lost his great grandfather, my grandfather, some years ago, whom he was used to seeing every day. He still has my father, and I'm thankful that for that. And at times he has his paternal grandfather as well. By me knowing that I'm a woman and I'm not a man, there are certain things that I cannot instill in my son from a masculine point of view, regardless of how unbiased and holistic my thinking is. Therefore, I lean into my father. I'll call my male best friend. I'll call and talk to other positive male influence whom I trust in order to make sure that my son is still being groomed and molded holistically. It's my job as a woman to build him up, to speak life into him, to nurture him, to discipline him, to set order, to give him a voice beyond mine. I've had to check myself under the correction of one of my mother's co-workers. Him and I were having a conversation because my son would be at school fighting, and he got that naturally from me. And it was one time when my mom's male co-worker, Black man, he said to me, he said, "Now I know you don't hit your kids like that, but I'm gonna tell you like this: when you're disciplining him verbally, you're going to have to bring your nature down." Mind you, he didn't see me verbally discipline him, but I'm a Black woman. And he's a Black man. He's a father. So you're going to have to find balance in your emotions because his emotions will feed off of you. And that's why you have a lot of Black men who are direct reflections of their Black mothers, even when their fathers are present. And that's because the woman sets the tone. She sets the atmosphere. She sets the fragrance for how the household structure is ran. She's wisdom. She's ruach. She's breath. And the Most High begins to, through that man who submitted to his son through the Melchizedekian priesthood, who was submitted unto him, he speaks and he gives seed and he places it in woman for woman to carry out the infrastructure of the home because she's earth. So when a man chooses a woman, he's choosing who's going to raise his children, even when he's around. And as a Black woman, I can say that we are greatly in parts responsible for the plight and the damage of these men and of these boys. A lot of times we will speak out of hurt, out of anger, out of bitterness. There are so many videos and conversations I have had when women have told their sons, you ain't nothing, you gonna be just like your daddy, you look just like him, like a lot of toxic things. As a woman that's been proposed to a few times and been engaged, right? I remember both of these men were very close to their moms. One more so than the other, in a way that his mother was very controlling, very manipulative, very much so codependent on this black man. And it came across incestuous to me. And there was a lot of jealousy. And I sat back and I said, oh, she's one of those. But she wasn't the first black mother that I ran into like that. I've been dealing with another black mother for 18 years now. One of the worst human beings I have ever met in my life. And she is echoed through the actions of her son, whom lacks that father figure. You can tell when a black man has been raised by a black woman, whether that be good or whether that be bad. It depends on the type of rearing he got and how he decides to use that rearing to mold him and to make him. So while we're talking about black boys and their molding and their making, what I really want to get into is the mental health aspect of black boys. So all of us have heard of the term ADHD. So this is interesting to me for a few reasons. My daughter and myself are both going back to school. Well, she's starting school, and I'm going back to school for psychology. I had a double major in nursing and psychology, and I'm going back to complete that. And we'll hear some statistics actually on psychologists and mental health in the black community. So, ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So there are two separate categories. As far as ADHD, it does not show up the same in boys, does not show up the same in girls. And there are different aspects of this. So with ADHD, it can show up in ways where a person can be inattentive, having difficulty concentrating and focusing, or they can be hyperactive and impulsive. Many people with ADHD have problems that fall into both of these categories, but that's not always the cause. So, for instance, there are a lot of black women whom have gone undiagnosed in childhood as far as ADHD. They've been called extra, dramatic, lazy, or genius because, as it says, sometimes you focus and you pay attention to detail. And so when we see ADHD, after I read some of these symptoms to you, it just sounds like kids being kids. And it's not to say that attention deficit hyperactive disorder does not exist. And so this was actually classified as ADD first, just attention deficit disorder without the hyperactive added to it. ADHD is more often diagnosed in boys than girls. Girls are more likely to have symptoms of inattentiveness only and are less likely to show disruptive behavior that makes ADHD symptoms more obvious. This means girls who have ADHD may not have always been diagnosed. The symptoms of ADHD in children and teenagers are well defined. They're usually noticeable before the age of 6. They occur in more than one situation, such as at home and school. Children have symptoms of both inattentiveness and hyperactivity and impulsiveness, or they may have the symptoms of just one of these type of behaviors. I'm going to link this down below. The inattentiveness, they may have a short attention span, easily distracted, making careless mistakes. For example, schoolwork, basically not taking their time, rushing through even though they may comprehend what's going on, appearing forgetful or losing things, being able to stick to tasks that are tedious or time consuming, appearing to be unable to listen to or carry out instructions, constantly changing activity or task, having difficulties organizing tasks. These are organizational issues. I'm going to tell you, there are some ways to help out children who have organizational issues, who are easily distracted. I know some of you know, and others of you do not know. My mother, the late Apostle Dr. Patricia Ann Holliday, was a counselor and case manager for Chicago Public Schools. She dealt with the impoverished population of the school, but also dealt with the mental health as well as creating the IEPs for students and 504 plans. Or if the teachers created them, my mother would go in and make sure that they were lined up with the law. She was an advocate to make sure that all of these students were getting pulled out of the classroom for adequate teaching, that they were seeing the psychologists the way that they needed to. My mother dealt with her job as a ministry. People would walk into school and say, "Where's Pastor Holiday?" Or if they called her Miss Holiday, they knew they couldn't come in her office cursing. They knew that if they talked to my mother, she was going to find an answer. So by watching her and her teaching me some things and her um, educating me as a mother, but also as a child, this is why it's important for children, put them on a schedule, have some type of calendar, have things mapped out for them, make some type of color coding things, because to diagnose children with something at the age of 6 is dumbfounding to me. I have my opinions on it, but we here for facts. The signs of hyperactivity and impulsiveness are being unable to sit still, especially in a calm and quiet surroundings, constantly fidgeting, unable to concentrate on tasks, excessive physical movement, excessive talking, being unable to wait their turn, acting without thinking, interrupting conversations, little or no sense of danger. So y'all know that friend that does all of these things, maybe they have ADHD and they were never diagnosed, especially if it's a female. So related conditions in children and teenagers with ADHD, these don't always come with it, can be anxiety, oppositional defiant disorder, meaning that they have problems with authority figures such as parents and teachers, conduct disorder. They like to fight, antisocial behavior, vandalism, harming people or animals. Now, harming animals, that's sociopathic, but we aren't here to talk about sociopaths. Depression, sleeping problems, autistic spectrum disorder. Autism and ADHD sit right on the same spectrum. And a lot of times, someone can have ADHD and complex post traumatic stress disorder or just PTSD coupled with ADHD or autistic, and they end up getting misdiagnosed as bipolar and end up on medication that does not help them, but in turn contributes to suicidal thoughts. So I'm going to link this down below. We're not too much getting into the symptoms in adult ADHD right now. I'll definitely do another video on that. So now what I'm going to talk about is the medication that's given for ADHD and the dates when this medication was not only founded, but also when ADHD was found or discovered. So here we go. What's the history of ADHD? So this is webmd.com. When was ADHD discovered? 1798, a Scottish doctor, Sir Alexander Critican, noticed some people were easily distracted and unable to focus on their activities the way others could. He reported that these symptoms began early in life. That's consistent with what we now call ADHD. Early descriptions of ADHD in a series of lectures in 1902. Sir George Frederick Steele talked about mental conditions in otherwise healthy children of normal intelligence. These children were more impulsive and had problems with attention and self-control. He noted 15 cases in boys and 5 in girls. This squares with the modern day knowledge that males are more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD than females. In 1937, how long ago was that? Charles Bradley, the medical director of what is today called Bradley Hospital in East Providence, Rhode Island, noticed that a stimulant called benzarine caused some children to behave better. It has also improved their school performance. I want to pronounce this right. Benzodrine, had been approved by the FDA in 1936, but it took many years before researchers took notice of Bradley's findings. I see that this was not too long ago. And we see that Ritalin was made in 1944 and marketed in 1954. ADHD was not included in the American Psychiatric Association Diagnosis and Status Manual of Mental Disorder, the DSM, until its second edition in 1968. My father was born in 1963 and my mother was born in 1965. Then it identified the condition as hyperkinetic reaction of childhood. In the third edition, released in 1980, I was born in 1986, the APA renamed the condition attention deficit disorder and created 2 variations. In 1987, the APA changed the name to attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which combined inattentiveness, impulsivity, and hyperactive in a single type. So we see when this medicine was created. So now we're going to talk about the side effects of said medication. You guys see that a lot of these things are very recent and very new concerning the medicine, concerning the names, concerning the diagnosis, and this is something that needs to be addressed. It's something that really needs to be talked about. Because if we are not sure about what it is that we're being given, these are newer drugs when they were introduced, very new. It was created in 1944 and then marketed 10 years later. Okay, Ritalin is a type 2 medication with a high tendency to be abused. You don't say. It is mainly prescribed to control attentive deficit hyperactive disorder and or treatment of major depression. It can also improve memory and attention, decrease the need for sleep, and facilitate feeling of pleasure. Also, it may induce alert and sharpness. So we're going to scroll down. It is believed that the known effects of Ritalin on the nervous system is mediated partially through increase in synaptic concentration of dopamine via its reuptake inhibition. Frontal cortex play a major role in highly integrated executive, cognitive, and behavioral functions such as nonverbal numbering process. So if we see that Ritalin has an effect on the nervous system, correct? And it says that some reports have shown the effects of other psychogenic agents such as cannabis sativa on serotonin transporter expression in the frontal cortex. They just compared Ritalin to marijuana. Do we not see what's going on? They just compared a herb, a fruit, and a flower to a chemical that was created and that can have side effects, that does have effects on the nervous system. And I know some of y'all are like, well, those are positive effects. It can help with it can help with your mood regulation and your sleep and problem solving. Did we not miss the part when it say that it is highly addictive? Chronic Ritalin intake may result in permanent brain damage is prescribed in childhood. So when these counselors and these teachers and these psychiatrists are diagnosing our Black boys at a higher rate with ADHD and then turning around and doping them up with Ritalin, then demonizing what it is that we normally flee to. Now, I'm not talking about little boys, I'm talking about, I'm going to say teenagers, even adults. Okay. All right. So, and it can damage the brain if it's taken consistently and it's addictive. But we saw when it said that ADHD was diagnosed in little kids around the age of 6 and at times younger, because that's the school going age. That's when little Black boys and little Black girls, kids, start to go to school. When little Black boys and little Black girls are at home, 8 times out of 10, the majority of the time of the day, if they ate, if they have cleaned up and done their chores, they done read their Bibles, they done did whatever they supposed to do, after they done relaxing, doing whatever, we let our kids play. Because kids are kids. They need to get their burst of energy out. They need to be able to express themselves. I seen some memes that was funny. It was like, don't come in my house telling me my son bad. This is his house. A lot of times what we call bad kids are hyperactive. And they're not even hyperactive. They're kids. They're enjoying life. They're getting used to this world, used to their brain, used to the trauma that they are going through. What about the fact that a lot of Black boys see their mothers go through things, see their fathers go through things? A lot of Black boys, I'm going to say Black boys, have to fear for their lives as soon as they start walking. And unfortunately, in 290 West Illinois, even though it happened out south, it's happened here before. 5-month-old Black baby girl got shot and killed. Our children have to worry about surviving because Black women get abortions 3 times the rate as any other race of people, because Planned Parenthood sits up in our communities. That's another video, Tiara. Black women also die at 3 times the rate in childbirth. They are after our seed and after our womb. So let's get back to it. Y'all remember, 1944, Ritalin was created. 1954, it was approved to be sold and distributed under that name. We're going to talk all facts here, because this is interesting to me. It's very interesting to me. And I hope somebody gets something out of this, because I'm not talking just to talk. 1954. You don't say. So, what was this? I should have put on my pearls so I could clutch them. What would my mom say? Oh, my stars. 58 years after ruling that segregation was legal, the U.S. Supreme Court issued 1954 Brown versus Board decision that desegregations the nation's public schools. So, When little black boys start going to school with little white kids, right? These diagnoses started coming out more. Maybe I'm just tripping. That's what it looks like. But again, maybe I'm just tripping. So if we are giving, we're placing our children, our black children, in traumatic situations. Because let's talk about the fact that when you have been raised around your people and your people only, it can be a culture shock to you. Integration was a culture shock to the black community for those that were fine being separate, being segregated, as the Most High Yahweh Elohim did at the Tower of Babel, Genesis chapter 10. Because when all of us, my God, when all of us were on one accord, speaking one language, having one religion, what happened? We decided to build a tower to try to get up to the heavenlies. So Yahweh looked down and he said to the divine council, let's go down there and see what's going on. Took 70 of his sons, 70 of his daughters. This is according to the Ugaritic text, the Ugaritic. Y'all can read it. Go into even Mesopotamia and their creation story. When we really begin to look into the fact that this is Babylon all over again. Because what happens when we become integrated with other nations and with other people, then they have control over our seed. Then they have control over that which it is that we consume mentally, spiritually, financially, emotionally, psychologically, sociologically, economically. Because as an Afro-Asiatic people, we want to be liked and be loved by other nations. This is not anything new. It's not anything new at all. And so now when the people speak on one language and go, everybody is the same and we all come from the same people, we need to research some history. White people are a new nation. And if you look on TikTok, a lot of people like TikTok. If you look on TikTok, you look on Google, you look in your science books, white people are a new nation. They're new. The world was black, then Asiatic, then these people came out the caves and like they are new. They know that they're a new race of people. The Most High specifically told us, do not take up the way of the heathens. Heathen, the nations, Gentile, Japheth, Genesis chapter 10. The first few verses will tell you that the Japhetic people populated Eurasia. And so when we want to take on the customs of the heathen and we beg for equal rights, I'm not equal to nobody. That's not me. That's not my right. Why are we looking for equality when we are called to be a peculiar people, a called out people, a set aside people, a sanctified people? See, when he brought down his 70 children to confuse the languages, it said, and now I have to give everybody their own nation and their own tongue. This was after that flood. Whether you want to believe it was a worldwide flood or a flood that had boundaries for that landmass. I'm not here to teach doctrine. It said, now everybody has an allotment according to their tongue, according to their tribe. We don't have the same tongue. We don't have the same tribe. And the only reason that we speak their language, whether we be in the Caribbean, because I'm going to tell you, a lot of these statistics say, as I get into it, that the Caribbean that come to America are plighted with suicide. Deadly. We pick up on their tongues because of oppression, because of slavery, because of captivity. So we pick up their ways, their Roman Catholic ways, their Babylonian ways, their Celtic ways, their Germanic ways, their Indo-European ways. All of us Hebraic people. Look at us. The Negroes, the Edomites, which are some of the Arabs. They whitewashed their culture too. Look at the Hebraic natives. They whitewashed them too. It's skin deep. So in 1954, when we begged for equality, when we begged for all of this, we traumatized our children by sending them to school where police had to escort them into a place that had rejected them and spewed them out. We traumatized our children by not keeping them home or keeping them in their own schools and homeschooling them. The book of Proverbs says that as wisdom, as chokmah, we are the first teachers of our children, and we hand them over as sheep to the slaughter, to be brainwashed, to be whitewashed, to be drugged up and cracked out. I'll never forget, it was a time because both of my children attended school with my mother, so there was a lot that I knew because of my children. My mother made sure she didn't talk in depth about her job. She was very to the law. There were times when I know for a fact my mother and other teachers saved little Black boys from taking their own lives, saved little Black boys, girls too, from doing irreparable damage to someone. There are mental health conversations that I have in my household that I suggest that you parents have. Ask your children, have you ever thought about killing yourself? Is it anything that I do to cause you pain, to cause you chaos, to cause you confusion, to make you feel rejected, to make you feel unloved? Because we are supposed to be safety, and we give off our children in 1954 because we, as a Black people, so much wanted to be involved in what it is that this ungodly and unruly world has to offer. And it's something that's gravely wrong with that. Let's look at the side effects of this medication. Ritalin side effects in a child, because it's different in everyone. The common side effects: headaches, anxiety, trouble sleeping. Wait a minute. Aren't one of the symptoms from ADHD anxiety? So you're giving me medicine that's going to trigger the anxiety that I already have. And anyone that has anxiety know that a lot of times you have anxiety, you're already having trouble sleeping. Didn't this also say that it can help you not sleep as much? So it causes insomnia, loss of appetite. This can lead to weight loss or poor weight gain. Wait a minute. So you're really telling me that children in the Black community, more times than not, who live in impoverished neighborhoods, who already are not the majority. Well, I can't say the majority. I didn't look up the statistics. Stereotypically, thank you, Father, stereotypically do not eat balanced diets. You know, you see the little kids walking around eating Flamin' Hots and drinking pops, eating candy. I go off on people for giving my kids, my daughter's 18, she still belongs to me. I buy snacks. We'll have junk food every now and then, but I go off. Do not give my kids candy and pop and chips and things like that. Y'all think about cavities, diabetes, chronic illness. Everything starts in the gut. But now you're telling me that when you put a child on this medication and their diet is possibly already poor, or they're living from link card reload to link card reload. And truth be told, a lot of people be out there selling their links and stacking up their house with junk. So now they're going to lose their appetite. Oh, and it causes stomach ache and dry mouth, feeling or being sick, causing nausea and vomiting. Sleep problems, decreased appetite, delayed growth, headaches, and stomach rebound. That's the addiction. Irritability when the medication wears off. Tics. So it was an article that I was reading. I believe it's the one I was reading it, and I didn't continue to scroll down, but it definitely named epilepsy. Epilepsy is something that can come along with ADHD. So that would have me, and I didn't even go deep into that part of the study. I might definitely have to do another video, because if a child is on Ritalin and now they're possibly more times than not experiencing these side effects, and they're now ticking, that's an uncontrollable movement of your nervous system, something you can't control. Would that not trigger an epileptic fit? Then it's saying that they have an irritability when they're off medication. That's an addiction to this drug. That's an addiction to this drug. We have our children addicted to Eastern culture, Eastern education, Eastern medicine. I continue. I share another article with you guys about the distrust that Black people have. Due to racial biases. In clinical care, biases in ADHD diagnosis and treatment decision is slowly being addressed, but still persists. So the medical sector as a whole, not just those related to ADHD, struggle to address racism, stereotyping, implicit biases, research representation, and health disparities. ADHD stigma abounds in the biopic community, and Black individuals and families are often reluctant to participate in research due to mistrust. We saw that happen with that they was trying to dispense to everybody. The deplorable and unethical Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis in the African American male may seem like ancient history to many, but it only ended 48 years ago, and it is haunting memory with the Black community. Mistrust of research is also fueled by ongoing experiences of discrimination in research and healthcare settings. Despite some progress, the fact remains that too many healthcare research and practitioners remain inadequately aware of the best ways to serve these highly diverse communities. With the limitation on available research in mind, here are a few recent studies that have been reported. Okay. So we see it's talking about American youth concern. Children are acutely aware of stereotypes about gender and race even before they start school. Youth, like adults, are sensitive to the activation of social stereotypes and how it affects their performance. The term stereotype threat refers to the psychological phenomenon. Sometimes when a member of a stereotype group is faced with a challenging situation that matters to them and that could activate the stereotype, the threat of fulfilling the stereotype interferes with performance and they do worse on the task as a result. Excuse me. Trauma and social disadvantage. This is saying that trauma and social disadvantage can trigger ADHD-like symptoms. In addition, children with ADHD are more likely to be harmed when exposed to trauma as they are less resilient. So, children and social disadvantage can trigger ADHD-like symptoms. So, when a child has been traumatized sexually, mentally, emotionally, hearing gunshots out the window, death, not eating the way that they need to, sometimes they'll start to have symptoms just like we do as adults. Maybe they'll become withdrawn or be a little anxious, or maybe they aren't heard as much at home and so they interrupt or get anxious, start fidgeting, become hyperactive because they're acting out, or sometimes they can't concentrate. Sometimes maybe these children cannot concentrate. Maybe they're disassociating because of their trauma. Maybe they're having complex post-traumatic stress disorder flashbacks, which are involuntary. Maybe they anxious around white people who they just got introduced in school to in 1954, and they don't know how to properly express themselves. Because when mama say sit down, when daddy say sit down. Appropriate parental strategies for handling disruptive children behavior in white populations are well known and guide psychological counseling for child behavior problems accordingly. The extent to which these same methods are right approach for Black parents and other culture groups is less clear. In several studies, parenting styles appear to have different correlations with outcomes depending on race and ethnicity. A more nuanced lesson from the literature appears to be that the best way of parenting to maximize for child development for ADHD may vary across race, social, cultural contexts, as well as child temperament. Appropriate parental strategies for handling disruptive children behavior in white populations are well known and guide psychological counseling for children behavior problems accordingly. So the white way of parenting is the psychological guide counseling for child behaviors accordingly. Is that what? But then it comes back to say that development for ADHD may vary across race, social, cultural contexts, as well as child temperament. So white people got the answers. And we should just ask them how to parent their children with dealing with ADHD. These same children who go and shoot up schools, same nation of people who have incited and caused trauma to the Black community. All right, y'all. ADHD has some of the same incidents amongst Black and white children, yet ADHD is less identified and treated in Black children. We still don't know if this means there's an over-identification in the white community or under-identification in the Black community. So this is my question, and maybe somebody smarter than me can answer this. Were they seeing that their children, because it just said maybe it's an over-identification in the white community, were they seeing that they're unruly, bad children, and I am being very stereotypical based off of what I have seen more times than not? Now, I know some bad Black kids. When I say bad, like I know a little Black boy who cursed at his mom, and I don't understand that. I don't understand that. With all the most time me, I don't understand that. But more time than not, y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. When you get in the store, little white kids just falling out everywhere. Because in the Black community, we have an old saying that says, well, you get me is where I get you. And that does not always mean physical discipline. For some of you woke parents who say that we learned how to whip our children because that was the slave master's teaching. Yo, Hebraic book say, spare the rod, spoil the child. Stop. In the Old Testament of the Bible, even if you don't keep all of the laws, one of the 10 commandments is don't obey your mom and your daddy. Then the Apostle Paul, when he was writing to the church of Ephesus, said, honor them so that your days can be long on the earth. That's what he said, right? And this is because in the Old Testament, a disobedient, disruly, disrespectful child was met by capital punishment. This is why some, not all, Black parents say, I brought you in this world. and I'll take you out of this world. I'll take you out before you get out in the world and let the police take you. Y'all know the sayings. So was it that these white children had ADHD, were being unruly, disobedient, or whatever, and then when our children start to integrate, you know what? I don't know. Somebody tell me. Y'all know where I'm going with the question. If it's a reach, let me know. My arms are short, so I don't try to reach too much. I'm little. Let somebody else reach for me. Do y'all see the connection though? I hope I'm making this clear. I really hope I'm making this clear because this is crazy. So now what I want to get into is the fact that with all of this that's going on, right? With the ADHD diagnosis, with the trauma, with the stress, the impoverished neighborhoods, so on and so forth. Unfortunately, this has had a spiral effect. And it make me kind of emotional. I'm not even gonna front. Like, okay, I'm gonna show y'all. Going to show y'all these numbers. So now we're gonna talk about suicide rates in a black man, black children. Here we go. So in blue, that's for black or African American, and in green, that's overall. I hope you guys can see either way it goes. I'm going to link all of these things down, in the description. So we see that more times than not, we take up over half of the numbers. Age of 15 through 24, the overall weight is 12.7, black 9.3. 25 through 34, the overall rate is 11.6. Blacks, it's 11.4. So on and so forth, right? Nope, let's go. Then it starts to go down more as men get older. And so the age ranges are very interesting to me for a few reasons. 15 through 24. This is where you come into your sexuality, you come into your manhood, come into your, you feeling yourself, your hormones are going. And a lot of black suicides that I have heard about, unfortunately, about a year and a half ago, someone that I know, a teenage relative of hers committed suicide. And he wasn't the first one I heard about. I heard about some, and with some of these suicides that have been experienced, some of it has been due to a conflict in sexuality. As a black people, as a Hebraic people, we are very stern on what it is that we believe, even though our moral compass is jacked up. Like, there are some things that I have done, but there are some things that I just be like, oh no. Now, I take wisdom from my mother. She always said, never say what you won't do, because that'll be the thing that you find yourself doing. So the age of 15 through 24 in the black community, these are the ages of which we see a lot of our boys start to go in and out of the system, the juvenile system. Then when we move on, some of them, we having a lot of amazing black men. I want to say that it's a fact that black men are in their children's lives more than any other race of people. Then you had the age of 25 through 34 when the numbers went up, and we have 11.4%. 25 through 34 for the black woman, that's the whole stage. We just gonna be real honest. So you gotta ask yourself, sis, these men out here hurting you, doing you dirty or whatever. But this massive femininity movement, the free sex movement, the I'm gonna pop it on a headstand, I'm gonna do whatever it is that I want, I'm gonna display it publicly. Like you what is it, FNF? Y'all know what I'm saying, right? Do we think about the effects that this has on a black man? Do we think about the fact that it's harder for black men who have been placed in systems? Because unfortunately, a lot of these boys that were diagnosed with ADHD in school end up in the juvenile system. And based off of my research from watching Dr. Remini, I can't post her videos because she does not allow that. She says that although black men make up the rate for being incarcerated, they are not the highest rate for most of these mental illnesses. The mental illness that you will see more times than not in black men, according to her, is narcissistic personality disorder. And narcissists are created. And this is one of the ways that they are created, by being dismissed, being drugged up, by their frontal cortex is being damaged. Suicide rate for black or African American by population divided by sex. So the male population, 22.9. It's literally half. Half of that. It says 11.7 of black men are responsible for the male suicide rate. With females, the suicide rate is 6.2, and 2.6 of black women are responsible for that. We've been selfish. We've been very selfish as black women. We overall do not care about black men outside of how well they can please us in bed, how many bills they gonna pay, how much money they gonna spend, if he could fight, if he a hard worker, and if he gonna travel with you. Very rarely do black women sit and ask a black man, a black boy, about their mental and emotional health. Black boys are called faggots, punks, sissies. Stop crying, you acting like a girl. Black men feel a certain way, he called gay. Why you acting like a B word? Tearing him down in his masculinity, emasculating him. He already got to go out in the world and fight the world. Then he has to come back home and fight his woman, get no respect in his home, get no thoughtfulness in his home. Mothers that overstep the boundaries with their sons. So, past year suicidal thoughts and behaviors for high school youth in black or African American populations, United States 2019. Y'all see this? Overall, US 19%, 17% black. Made a suicide attempt, 16%. Overall, 15% black. No, made a suicide plan. Attempted suicide, 12% black, 9% the world population. US, I'm sorry. Suicide attempt requiring treatment, 3% across the board. And these are high school students. There are many times that I've heard stories from black boys who were on sports teams and things like that. And they were being raped and molested by their teachers, by their coaches, by their teammates. This also happens in college. There's an article of a black police officer here in Chicago. Man was in custody for a misdemeanor violation. He was in the hospital, handcuffed to the bed. Black cop sexually assaulted him in a bad way. He was clearly holding some things in. Black men can't even vocalize when they've been raped, whether it's by a man or by a woman. If a black man dares open his mouth and talks about his innermost thoughts, he's automatically shut up. This is disturbing. I'll play a few short clips from black men. Whew. And you guys can view these videos in full. And after I play these clips, I'm going to close out. Once again, guys, if you could do me a favor, like the video, comment, share it to your social media platform. I would greatly appreciate it. So this is Dr. Harold Neighbors and and S.C. Malt Endowed, professor at Michigan State University, tells host Dr. Lonnie Joe why black men can no longer live in silence. Here we go, y'all.
With a lot of the long-term disease states necessarily, they're not old enough. They haven't set in just yet. We may see some of the beginnings of it, but they haven't set in yet. But there are other social factors, so there are other social environmental factors that affect that age group, and they wind up depressed at alarming rates.
Yeah. So in my opinion, all of this goes back to social determinants. And when I say social determinants, I'm primarily interested in education and employment. The way those social determinants affect the black community, you take another step back, and that is really the legacy of racism and slavery that has, that's really laid the unfortunate context with which a lot of us are dealing right now. So even though my research focuses more on the people who are experiencing the symptoms, we can't ever forget that the social determinants are really what's driving a lot of this. So the research that I'm doing now, and a lot of it was done in Detroit, the younger guys in our groups, our research groups, are talking about the loss of hope for the future. So hopelessness is one of the big problems. Hopelessness is, by the way, another indicator of depression, can be. But in my opinion, it's the lack of economic opportunity coupled with poor educational preparation that is saying to many of our young men that they're not seeing a positive future for them. Suicide could be one result of that. And I might add access to handguns is another problem.
So the infiltration, the increased infiltration of handguns in underserved communities is really startling.
Yes.
Woody, in the African American community, the church plays a big role. The spiritual lives of people has always been a big role, but in the African American community, it's different and it's special. I ask patients all the time, where you go to church, they identify with a church, even if they haven't been in a very long time. They identify with a minister. When it comes to this disease state of depression, where does the role of the church come in, the role of the pastor, and this interaction with black men? What role does that play, and where does it come in with African American men?
Well, to be honest, I wish we knew more about that question. It does come into play, but I think the point we're trying to make is that we as black men need to take even more advantage of the kind of things that the church and people that we know that are members of our church can offer us when we're in a high distress situation. So the general answer to your question is yes. The black church plays a very important role. I have colleagues at the University of Michigan who've been doing research on this for years. The very first paper that I published back in the early 80s. When we asked people, what do you do when you're under serious stress? One of the top things they talked about was prayer. So that's one place where I think Black men are probably relying on assistance to get through tough times. But the problem is that we as men are probably not revealing our stress to our church members, to our family friends at the level, family and friends at the level that we should.
That's very true, because we see so many people in the family come along and say, I didn't know
I
he
didn't
had
know.
this problem.
Yeah. I mean, when you say something like that, it reminds me of Don Cornelius.
Yes.
I
Soul
mean,
Train.
everybody watched Soul Train. I mean, all the time. Don Cornelius's son, Don Cornelius committed suicide, unfortunately. His own son said those very words. I did not know my father was in such pain. Part of the reason he did not know, my speculation, is that Don Cornelius didn't really reveal the pain that he's in. So you're absolutely.
So as I said, that video is going to definitely be linked down below. You guys noticed that he mentioned church, and I'm gonna tell you, prayer has always been something for our people. We are more spiritual, whether it be church going, West African spirituality, whatever it is, than most people. I also want to tell you guys, and I mention my mom a lot, but I'm saying my father would always say that every pastor needs to have a therapist. And the reason being is because you see how he mentioned that people will run to church for this healing, as you should. But pastors are not counselors. And even though my mom was a counseling case manager, she would tell people, there are some things I'm not going to counsel you about because I'm not putting my license at stake. It's a conflict of interest. So it's her endeavors as when she passed away with her doctoral and pastoral counseling, because she was doubly mastered um, secularly, and then she got her doctorate in the ministerial world. Her plan was to go around and provide mental health services to pastors and to their laity, so that pastors wouldn't try to operate outside of their realm of expertise, because this is seen a lot. And ethically, this isn't even legal, but morally, it's not okay. And also, because pastors are not trained to diagnose and to deal with certain things, but pastors deal with a lot of mental health issues on their own. I'm going to link down some articles about the fact that pastors have been killing themselves at a high rate for years now. So this is not just a laity issue. This is a leadership, a Black man issue. Let me see. The statistic says, uh, here we go. If I can't find a space in the article, there's a lot of numbers, you guys. I'm going to link this. This talks about all of the statistics: stress related, depression, low image, no lay counseling support, no vacations. These statistics are crazy. So imagine a broken person going into a house where your pastor is the person that helps you. Your pastor is the one that helps to feed you and to help assist in your healing, as the Levitical priest did when someone was unclean. They gave instructions for healing, and there are some healings that can only be done through the priesthood. So here we go, you guys. I'm going to link this down below. This is sad. Our men. I say not only men are pastors, but you guys know more times than not, men are pastors. It's going to be the last video that I share with you guys just to give you some numbers from a Black male therapist. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, I really appreciate it. So this is Curtis Jackson.
Death, depression, divorce, debt, devastation, deadbeat, despair. There is a Black male mental health struggle. I became a therapist in therapy. The unsustainability of Black male trauma, Black male rage, Black male resentment is a real thing, an unsustainable thing. So what's the struggle? 1 in 4 psychologists are Black. And when I say Black, I mean that includes Black men and Black women. According to the American Psychological Association, 4% psychologists worldwide, in this country, are Black. For every 100,000 Black Americans, only 1 Black psychiatrist. 7% of Black men received any form of mental health services in the last couple years. Right? Black youth, particularly Black boys, are introduced with the struggle of mental health at a very early age. It's treated in elementary school by suspensions or special education referrals. What's the Black struggle? That's it. The inadequacy of practitioners who look like Black men, who have a unique experience with mental health. Right? What does that mean for all of us? The current mental health industry does not sustain Black male trauma, Black male rage, Black male resentment, which means we have to look at the factors that are uniquely attributed to Black males in this country. What makes me qualified to talk about Black male mental health struggle? Well, beyond the obvious of being a Black male, I crashed in 2008, the year
So I'm going to link that video down below so that you guys can definitely hear the rest of that, so he can let you know his story personally and what it is that he faced as a Black man. You heard him. He said that he became a Black therapist in therapy. So there's also more research that I'm going to link down below for you guys. Some articles, some PDFs, some statistics, some videos. I want you guys to really, 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 really look into all of this because it's important. We need our men. I can't stress that enough. We need our men. Well, I speak for me. I need Black men. I love Black men. And Black men need a safe place, a safe haven to express themselves. Because a lot of this alcoholism, hypersexuality, impulsive nature, abuse, shutting down, venting to other people, like all of these things are symptoms. They're symptoms. They're the effect. And the cause has gone unaddressed, and it's time for us to heal as a nation. And before we can heal the neck and the body, the head has to be together. So thank you guys once again for coming to my channel. This is Jacolia of Jacolia Gems. And as usual, all of my videos are sponsored by my holistic self-care line, Harvest Essence. You would like to place an order for herbal teas, herbal baths, beard oils, yoni products, body scrubs. Reach out to me on Instagram at TIERRA_holiday with 2 L's, or Tierra Holiday at yahoo.com. My website will be linked below, as well as my payment options with LinkedIn. Unfortunately, with selling Hebraic products, you can't do it on all websites. I thank you guys so much for your continued support. And I hope and I pray through the Most High, Chuchua Elohim of the Hebrews, that this has reached someone. Like this video, comment, share it to your social media platforms, and above all, check on a Black man. This is Jacolia signing out. See y'all soon.